Your life is filled with invisible battles. Every day, you wake up and walk into a world that tests you, pressures you, challenges you. You face expectations from family, demands from work, the endless noise of society, and the hidden storms inside your own mind. Sometimes you hold it together, but sometimes you break. Maybe not completely, but enough to feel it. Enough to feel the cracks forming in your confidence, in your peace, in your spirit. And in those quiet moments, when no one is watching, you ask yourself, why is it so easy to be shaken? Why do the words of another person wound me? Why does one failure linger in my head for years? Why do I collapse under pressures that others seem to carry with ease? The truth is uncomfortable, but it must be faced. The world is not what breaks you. You break yourself by giving your power away. Think about it. A word is just a vibration in the air, yet someone's insult cuts deep into your soul. A loss is just a rearrangement of matter, yet it leaves you crushed with grief. A rejection is nothing more than another person's decision, yet it makes you feel worthless. Why? Why does something outside of you have the power to shatter your inner world? Here lies the paradox of the human condition. You are born with immense strength, but you live as if you are fragile. You are capable of carrying burdens that would terrify your ancestors, but you surrender to the smallest wounds. You are not weak because the world is cruel. You are weak because you've believed the greatest lie of all, that your strength comes from outside you. For centuries, humans have chained themselves to illusions. They have tied their peace to wealth, their confidence to reputation, their happiness to the approval of others. And when those chains are pulled, they break. But long ago, a group of thinkers, warriors, and leaders discovered a different truth. They saw through the illusion and revealed a path where no insult can crush you, no loss can paralyze you, no failure can define you. They called this path Stoicism, and its promise is simple yet radical. Nothing outside of you has the power to break you. Only you hold that power. If you learn to master it, you can become unbreakable. But before you begin this path, you must feel the weight of the problem. Because unless you see the cost of living fragile, you will not have the courage to live strong. Consider how many moments of your life have been stolen by weakness. Think of the opportunities you didn't take because you doubted yourself. Think of the nights you couldn't sleep because of words someone else said. Think of the times you gave up too early because failure convinced you that you weren't good enough. If you add them all together, how much of your life has been wasted, not by fate, not by misfortune, but by the lie that you are fragile. That is the enemy. Not death, not pain, not poverty, but the voice inside that says, "You cannot handle this." The Stoics refused to live that way. They chose to confront life directly, without illusions. Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor who ruled over the most powerful empire on earth, faced betrayal, plague, endless war, and the loss of many children. Yet he wrote in his journal each night reminders to himself that no insult could harm him, that no tragedy could break his spirit, that no pain could define his soul. Epictetus, born a slave, tortured, and crippled, taught his students that freedom comes not from chains being broken, but from the mind refusing to be enslaved. Seneca, forced into exile, stripped of wealth, surrounded by enemies, still wrote letters filled with clarity, peace, and resilience. What did they know that we do not? What secret allowed them to remain whole while others around them collapsed? The secret is this: life is not about avoiding the storm. It is about becoming the storm. The world will always test you, with pain, with insults, with losses. You cannot control that, but you can control how you meet it. Most people meet life with fragility, and so they are broken. The Stoics met life with strength, and so they became unbreakable, and you can too. But to do so, you must walk the ancient path they walked. It is not a path of comfort. It is not a path of ease. It is a path of fire. But in that fire, your weakness burns away, and your true strength is revealed. Still, let's not rush. You may be tempted to grab this philosophy as a shield and declare yourself invincible, but that would be a mistake. Stoicism is not about pretending to be strong. It is about becoming strong. And to become strong, you must first see why you are weak. You must face the illusions that secretly control your life. You must look directly at the chains you've wrapped around yourself. Only then can you break them. So ask yourself now, where do you believe your worth lies? Is it in how others see you? Is it in the money you earn? Is it in whether you succeed or fail? If so, you have already surrendered your power, because anything that does not belong to you can be taken from you. And if it can be taken, it can break you. But the Stoics taught us something different, that your worth is not in possessions, not in reputation, not in outcomes, but in your mind, in your character, in your ability to choose. Nothing else belongs to you. And if you learn to live by that rule, nothing else can break you. Imagine what that would feel like. Imagine living a life where insults pass through you like wind, where losses do not crush you, where fear does not paralyze you, where even death does not frighten you. Imagine the strength of knowing that no matter what happens, you remain whole. That is the life the Stoics lived. That is the life you can live. That is what it means to become unbreakable. But don't be deceived. This is not easy. You will be tested, not once, but every day. The world will not stop trying to break you. People will insult you. Fortune will betray you. Pain will visit you. Failure will greet you. And your own mind will whisper again and again, "You cannot handle this." But each time, you will have a choice, to believe the lie or to walk the path of truth. That choice, repeated every day, is what makes you either fragile or unbreakable. The Stoics left us not just words but practices, rules, exercises to strengthen the mind as one strengthens the body. If you walk them, you will change. Slowly, then suddenly, you will become someone who does not break. And so, this journey begins with a single revelation, a truth so powerful that it can rewrite how you see the world. The revelation is this: the greatest lie your mind tells you is that your strength comes from outside you. That if you have enough money, enough approval, enough luck, you will be safe. But this is the path of weakness, because when those things leave you, as they always do, you collapse. The Stoics showed us the alternative, that strength comes only from what is within you, from your choices, your reason, your character. That is the only fortress that cannot be taken, cannot be stolen, cannot be destroyed. As you listen, remember, this is not just philosophy. This is survival. The world will try to break you, and if you are not prepared, it will succeed. But if you learn to live as the Stoics lived, you will carry inside you a fortress no storm can breach. This is the promise. This is the path. And now, standing at the threshold of it, you must decide. Will you continue to live fragile, chained to illusions? Or will you walk forward, into the fire, into the storm, into the path that will make you unbreakable? But beware, the first step is the hardest. For before you can build strength, you must confront weakness. Before you can free yourself, you must see your chains. Before you can become unbreakable, you must face the lie that has kept you fragile all along. And that lie is waiting to be exposed. The next part of this journey will reveal it. And once you see it, you can never unsee it. The question is, are you ready to confront the truth your mind has been hiding from you? You have already felt the pull of the promise, that nothing outside of you has the power to break you. But before you can walk the Stoic path, you must confront the lie that has ruled your life for as long as you can remember. This lie hides in plain sight. It disguises itself as common sense, as normal thinking, as the very foundation of society. It has been whispered to you since childhood, reinforced by teachers, parents, friends, culture, and the endless voices of the world. The lie is this: your worth, your strength, your peace, your very identity depend on things outside of you. This lie makes you fragile. This lie convinces you that if you do not achieve wealth, you are nothing. That if others do not approve of you, you are worthless. That if you fail, you are broken. That if you lose someone, you cannot go on. It sounds harmless, but it enslaves you. It binds your happiness to forces beyond your control. And when those forces shift, as they always do, you collapse. Think about the life you've been taught to pursue. From an early age, society conditions you to chase success in the form of possessions, status, recognition. You are told to study hard, get good grades, so that one day you can secure a job that pays well, that allows you to buy the right house, the right car, the right clothes. You are told to find approval, first from teachers, then from bosses, then from friends and strangers on social media. You are told that how many people like you, follow you, admire you, determines how valuable you are. And so, every step of your life becomes a gamble. When fortune smiles on you, you feel strong. When it abandons you, you feel weak. Do you see the problem? If your peace depends on what you do not control, you have already lost it. This is why so many live fragile lives. The person who ties their self-worth to wealth will shatter the moment fortune abandons them. The one who builds their identity on reputation will collapse when others speak ill of them. The one who believes happiness comes from relationships will be crushed when people leave. At first, the lie feels comforting. It tells you that if you can just acquire enough, if you can just win enough approval, if you can just keep everything safe, you will be strong. But this is the cruelest trick, because in tying yourself to what is external, you guarantee your weakness, for nothing external is permanent. Wealth comes and goes. Fame rises and fades. Approval shifts like the wind, and death eventually strips everything away. The Stoics saw this clearly. They watched emperors fall, cities burn, wealth disappear overnight, friends betray each other, families torn apart by death. They saw that those who clung to externals were broken again and again. But they also saw a rare few who remained standing. Those few did not measure themselves by what they owned or how others saw them. They measured themselves only by what was truly theirs, their choices, their reason, their virtue. That was enough. That made them unbreakable. Let's make this real. Imagine two men standing side by side. One has built his confidence on his wealth. The other has built his confidence on his character. A fire breaks out in their town. The wealthy man's house is destroyed, his possessions reduced to ashes. He collapses in despair, convinced his life is over, because he tied his identity to things that could be burned. The other man also loses his home, but he remains calm. Why? Because his character remains untouched. His virtue remains unburned. The fire could destroy his possessions, but it could not touch what was truly his. Which of these men is fragile? Which of these men is unbreakable? Or consider the person who chases approval. They live their life like an actor on a stage, adjusting their words, their clothes, their opinions, to please the audience. They feel strong only when others clap. But one day, the crowd boos, the audience turns away, and the actor feels worthless, broken. Compare this with the Stoics, who knows that the opinions of others are not truth, but mere echoes of their own weaknesses. The Stoic lives aligned with reason, with justice, with what they know to be right. When the audience claps, they remain steady. When the audience boos, they remain steady, because their worth was never for sale. This is the lie you must confront. The lie that tells you that your peace, your value, your strength depend on things outside of you. As long as you believe it, you will be fragile, because the world will take those things away from you again and again, and each time you will collapse. You will think, I cannot go on without this. But you can, you always could, you just forgot. Epictetus warned his students about this lie. He told them, some things are up to us, and some are not. What is up to us? Our opinions, our judgments, our choices, our actions. What is not up to us? Everything else. Wealth, health, reputation, the actions of others, the outcome of events. If you tie your peace to what is not up to you, You are building your house on sand. One storm and it falls. If you tie your peace to what is up to you, you are building on stone. No storm can move it. But here is the danger. The lie is seductive. It feels natural to believe that wealth equals strength, that approval equals worth, that success equals peace. It feels natural because everyone around you believes it too. But the truth is harsher and rarer. That is why few ever become unbreakable. Most cling to the lie until it destroys them. They live chasing what cannot be kept, and then they die disappointed. But you do not have to live that way. You can choose differently. Think of the people you admire most, not celebrities or influencers, but the ones who faced unimaginable trials and still stood tall. The prisoner of war who survived years of torture without breaking his spirit. The leader who remained calm when their nation fell into chaos. The parent who lost a child yet continued to live with compassion and strength. Were these people strong because of wealth, because of fame, because of approval? No. They were strong because they understood what truly belonged to them and what did not. They built their identity on something unshakable. And so, when the storms came, they did not fall. The lie that strength comes from outside you will continue to whisper. It will tempt you to measure yourself by your bank account, by your followers, by the admiration of others. It will tempt you to think you are nothing without success. But each time you hear it, you must remember, that is the voice of fragility. That is the path to weakness. The Stoic path is harder, but it is the only one that leads to true strength. Do not misunderstand. The Stoics did not reject wealth, or success, or reputation entirely. They understood that these things can be useful, pleasant, even worthy pursuits when aligned with virtue. But they refused to tie their worth to them. They treated externals as tools, not as masters. They could use them, but they could also lose them without being broken. That is the difference. That is the freedom. That is the truth that kills the lie. So let me ask you, where have you tied your peace to what is not yours? Have you told yourself you are valuable only if you succeed at work? Have you believed you are lovable only if others approve of you? Have you convinced yourself that happiness depends on wealth, or comfort, or recognition? If so, you have been living under the lie, and until you untie yourself, you will remain fragile. But once you see the lie, you can no longer be fooled by it. You can begin to anchor your worth where it belongs, in your choices, in your character, in your reason. The world will still try to break you. It will still strip you of wealth, deny you approval, crush your successes, take from you those you love. But if you have anchored yourself to what is truly yours, it will fail. The storms may rage, but your foundation will hold. You will not be broken, because you never placed your strength where the world could reach it. You kept it inside, where it has always belonged. And yet knowing this truth is only the beginning. Seeing the lie is not enough. You must replace it with a stronger belief. You must practice every day, reminding yourself what is yours and what is not. You must train your mind to release its grip on externals and cling only to what cannot be taken. This is the discipline of the Stoic. This is the practice that transforms knowledge into strength. Without it, you will fall back into the lie. With it, you will rise above it. But here is the next challenge. Even when you see the lie, even when you know the truth, life will still throw storms at you. And in those moments, when everything around you collapses, you will need more than understanding. You will need a fortress within you. A fortress built not of stone, but of thought, not of walls, but of reason, not of weapons, but of wisdom. The Stoics built this fortress, and now you must learn how to build yours. The question is, how do you create a mind that remains unshaken when the world shakes? How do you remain calm when insulted, resilient when rejected, strong when everything is taken from you? This is the next lesson, the next step on the path, and it is waiting for you. You have seen the lie that keeps you weak, the belief that your peace and strength depend on what happens outside of you. That lie has enslaved you for years, making you fragile, making you break whenever the world shifted. But now, you are ready for the first great truth of the Stoic path. This truth is the weapon that will begin to cut your chains. This truth is the key that will begin to unlock your fortress. The truth is this: nothing can harm you unless you allow it. Nothing has meaning until you give it meaning. Nothing can break you without your consent. Think about it. Events themselves are neutral. A storm is just wind and rain. An insult is just sound waves in the air. A failure is just a moment in time where a desired outcome did not occur. These things are not inherently crushing. They are not powerful by themselves. What gives them power is the story you attach to them. The storm becomes a tragedy when you tell yourself you cannot survive it. The insult becomes a wound when you believe the words define you. The failure becomes shame when you decide it means you are worthless. Without your interpretation, these events are nothing more than facts. With your interpretation, they become daggers to your soul. This is what Epictetus taught his students. Born into slavery, beaten, mocked, even crippled by his master, he could have lived as a victim. He could have said, "I am powerless, I am broken. My life is ruined by what others have done to me." But he refused. He understood the secret. His body could be chained, but his mind could not. His freedom, his peace, his strength, these belonged to him alone, untouchable by any master. And so he lived with a serenity greater than emperors. He taught that while we cannot control what happens, we can always control how we respond. That is where our true power lies. Ask yourself now, how many times have you given away this power? How many times have you let someone else's opinion decide your worth? How many times have you let an outcome define your identity? How many times have you allowed pain to convince you that you were broken? Every time you did this, you surrendered control. You handed the keys of your fortress to the world. And every time, the world used them against you. But the moment you realize that your response is always yours, the game changes. Suddenly, the insults lose their sting. The failures lose their weight. The pain becomes something you can endure, even transform. Let's make it vivid. Imagine you are walking down the street. A stranger shouts an insult at you. Immediately, your body reacts. Your chest tightens. Your face flushes. Anger rises. You feel attacked. But pause. What has actually happened? A stranger you do not know has moved air through their throat, producing a sound. That's it. The event is neutral. The sting comes only from the story you tell yourself. This person disrespects me, therefore I am diminished. But if you choose a different story, this is only noise, and their words say more about them than about me, the sting disappears. The event has no power except what you give it. Or think of failure, you apply for a job and do not get it. Instantly, doubt creeps in. I am not good enough. I am worthless. I will never succeed. But again, what has actually happened? A group of people made a decision, that's all. The meaning you attach, worthless, hopeless, is your choice. You could choose a different meaning. This was practice. This was training. I am one step closer. Same event, different story, different power. One story breaks you, the other strengthens you. Which do you choose? This is the essence of the Stoic secret. Between event and response, there is a space. In that space lies your power. You cannot control the event, but you can always control your response. And your response is what determines whether you are fragile or unbreakable. This is why Marcus Aurelius could write in his journal after endless days of war and betrayal, "If you are pained by anything external, it is not the thing itself that disturbs you, but your judgment of it." Do you see the clarity? The world cannot touch your mind without your permission. But here comes the challenge. Knowing this truth is not the same as living it. Your habits, built over years, will try to steal this power from you. Your reflex will be to react, to blame, to collapse. You will need to train yourself daily, like a soldier sharpening his sword, to remember, the event is nothing, the judgment is everything. This training is what makes Stoicism not just philosophy but practice. Start simple. Each day, when something small irritates you, A rude driver, a delay, a spilled drink? Pause. Ask yourself, what has really happened here? Is this truly a tragedy, or am I making it one? Is this event actually powerful, or am I handing it power? Breathe, step back, and choose a different response. At first, it will feel unnatural, but over time, your mind will change. You will begin to see events as they are, neutral, harmless, powerless until you decide otherwise. The Stoics called this discipline the control of impressions. They trained themselves to pause before accepting the first story their mind created. Because the first story is almost always fear, anger, or despair. By pausing, by questioning, they created space for reason, for strength. You can do the same. Each pause is a brick in your fortress. Each chosen response is another wall against the storm. And make no mistake, the storms will come. You will be insulted. You will fail. You will lose. You will feel pain. None of this can be avoided. But what can be avoided is giving these events the power to destroy you. That is your choice. That is your weapon. That is the secret of internal control. But now, you may ask, if this is true, if my mind is the source of my strength, how do I make it unshakable? How do I ensure that when the great storms come, not the small insults or minor failures, but the true catastrophes of life, I remain standing? Knowing the secret is one thing, building the fortress is another. And this is where the Stoics take us deeper. They show us not just how to respond, but how to prepare, how to fortify, how to create a mind so strong that no disaster can move it. The next lesson is this: you must build your inner fortress before the storm arrives. Because when the storm hits, it is too late to begin construction. You must begin now, today, while the skies are clear, so that when the world tries to break you, it finds walls too strong to fall. This is the path to becoming unbreakable. This is the next step you must take. The only question is, are you ready to build the fortress of the mind? You now hold the secret in your hands. Nothing can break you without your consent. The world is powerless unless you grant it power. But this knowledge alone is not enough. Because when the storm arrives, when tragedy, loss, and betrayal strike, you will not have time to think calmly and philosophically. Your body will flood with fear, your mind will tremble, and your instinct will be to collapse. That is why the Stoics taught not only principles but preparation. To live unbreakable, you must build your fortress before the storm comes. A fortress of the mind, a citadel within your soul, walls so strong that no disaster can penetrate them. This is the next step, to build the fortress of the mind. Think of a city without walls. It might thrive in times of peace, but the moment an enemy attacks, it falls. Most people live this way. They enjoy peace when fortune smiles, but when hardship arrives, they collapse, defenseless. The Stoics refused such vulnerability. They built mental walls, layer upon layer, practice upon practice, so that when hardship came, as it always does, they remained standing. Their cities did not burn, because their cities were within. Their treasures could not be stolen, because their treasures were virtue. Their walls could not be breached, because their walls were reason. How do you build such a fortress? The first brick is expectation. Most people are broken, not because life is hard, but because they expected it to be easy. They live with the illusion that things should go their way, that comfort is their birthright, that the universe owes them safety. When this illusion shatters, so do they. The Stoics destroyed this illusion in advance. They practiced a discipline called premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of adversity. Each day, they imagined what could go wrong. Not to invite fear, but to build strength. Seneca would write to himself, "Today I may face insult, injury, loss, betrayal, even death." By rehearsing adversity in the mind, he built walls before the attack. So when adversity arrived, it was not a shock. He had already met it, already accepted it, already prepared for it. Try it yourself. Each morning, before stepping into the world, imagine what could go wrong. Imagine the delays, the disappointments, the rejections, the pains. Tell yourself, These may come today, and I will not be surprised. Feel the strength that comes from this. Because when they come, you will not ask, "Why me?" You will say, "I knew you were coming, and I am ready." This is the power of expectation. This is the first wall of your fortress. The second brick is perspective. When hardship strikes, our instinct is to magnify it, to see it as the end of the world. But perspective shrinks adversity to its true size. Marcus Aurelius, surrounded by war and plague, reminded himself again and again, this is just one small event in the vast flow of time, a moment among millions, a grain of sand in the desert of eternity. With this perspective, even tragedy loses its power. Because how can one event, however painful, dominate your soul when you see it against the backdrop of eternity? Perspective is a wall that turns mountains into pebbles. The third brick is rehearsal. Soldiers do not wait for war to learn how to fight. They train daily, so that when war comes, their response is instinct. The Stoics trained their minds the same way. They practiced enduring discomfort, sleeping on the floor, fasting, walking barefoot in the cold. These were not acts of misery, but of strength. They reminded themselves that comfort is not a necessity, that pain is not unbearable, that they can endure more than they imagine. By rehearsing hardship, they robbed it of its terror. When true hardship came, they had already faced it in smaller doses, and so they remained standing. You too can rehearse. Skip a meal and remind yourself that hunger is not the end of you. Take a cold shower and feel that discomfort is tolerable. Walk without your phone and see that boredom cannot destroy you. Each small rehearsal adds another stone to your fortress. Each act of chosen discomfort prepares you for unchosen suffering. This is training. This is strength. This is the path to unbreakability. The fourth brick is reason. Emotions are wild storms, capable of tearing down your defenses if you let them. But reason is the calm center, the anchor that holds you steady. The Stoics trained themselves to pause, to examine their emotions before obeying them. Anger rises. Pause and ask, is this truly worth my peace? Fear grips you. Pause and ask, is this danger real or only imagined? Sadness consumes you. Pause and ask, is this event truly unbearable, or am I exaggerating its power? In each pause, reason speaks, and in each pause, another wall rises, because a fortress built on reason cannot be toppled by storms of emotion. Now imagine yourself walking through life with these walls. Each day, you expect hardship. Each day, you practice perspective. Each day, you rehearse discomfort. Each day, you pause for reason. Slowly, your fortress rises. At first, it may feel fragile, but day after day, brick upon brick, it grows taller, thicker, stronger. Until one day, when hardship arrives, you realize something extraordinary. You no longer collapse. You no longer panic. You no longer shatter. The storm rages outside, but inside, you remain calm. The enemy hammers your walls, but your walls do not fall. You have become a city defended. You have become a fortress. But let us not romanticize. Even the Stoics knew their walls would be tested. Marcus Aurelius wrote of betrayal, of grief, of endless war. He did not deny the pain. He felt it deeply, but he also reminded himself, the pain is not the end of me. The grief is not the end of me. The betrayal is not the end of me. Because as long as my reason remains intact, as long as my virtue remains unshaken, I remain whole. This is the essence of the fortress, not the absence of pain, but the ability to endure it without collapse. You may ask, will building this fortress make me cold, detached, unfeeling? The answer is no. The Stoic fortress is not a prison. It does not cut you off from life. It frees you to engage with life fully, without fear of being broken. When you know you can endure loss, you can love more deeply. When you know you can endure failure, you can pursue bold dreams. When you know you can endure insult, you can speak truth without fear. The fortress does not shrink life, it expands it, because you are no longer held hostage by fear. So now ask yourself, where are your walls weakest? Do insults still pierce you? Do failures still crush you? Do losses still paralyze you? These are the cracks in your fortress, and these are the places where you must train. Expect insult. Rehearse failure. Face loss in your mind before it comes in reality. With each act of preparation, the cracks close, the walls strengthen, and you become less breakable. But even as you build, there is one enemy you must confront. One enemy no fortress can keep out: time. You may build walls against insult, walls against pain, walls against fear. But time comes for all. It erodes wealth, it erodes health, it erodes life itself. Many fear time most of all because behind time waits death. And death, for most, is the greatest breaker. It is the enemy that crumbles all walls. But the Stoics found even here a way to remain unbreakable. They faced death not as an enemy but as a teacher. They embraced it as the ultimate reminder of what matters. They called this practice memento mori, remember death, and it is this practice that turns even time, even death, into fuel for strength. The fortress of the mind is powerful, but without memento mori, it remains incomplete. Because until you face death, you remain fragile. Until you accept mortality, you remain breakable. And so, the next step on your journey is the hardest yet: to confront the shadow of death, and to discover the freedom that comes when you no longer fear it. Are you ready to look death in the eye and take from it the strength to live unbroken? You have built the beginnings of your fortress. You have laid the walls of expectation, perspective, rehearsal, and reason. Already, you are stronger than most, already less fragile, already closer to unbreakable. But now you must confront the greatest enemy of all, the enemy that no walls can keep out, the shadow that follows you from birth until your final breath. That enemy is death. For most people, death is the ultimate breaker. It terrifies, it paralyzes, it makes all strength crumble. But the Stoics saw what few dare to see, that death is not the enemy, death is the teacher. Death, embraced, is what gives life its power. And to become truly unbreakable, you must learn to look death in the eye and refuse to tremble. Why do people fear death so much? Because they believe it robs them of everything. They see it as a thief that comes in the night, stripping them of possessions, of loved ones, of future possibilities. They imagine the darkness, the nothingness, the end of self, and they panic. The fear of death lingers in the background of every choice. It is the reason we cling to comfort, the reason we chase wealth, the reason we beg for approval. Because deep down, we know time is running out and death is waiting. This fear makes us fragile. It makes us slaves to the calendar, desperate for more days, terrified of loss. But the Stoics refused to be slaves to fear. They practiced memento mori, remember death, not as morbid obsession but as liberation. They reminded themselves daily that they were mortal, that life is brief, that each breath could be their last. Seneca wrote, "You act like mortals in all that you fear, and like immortals in all that you desire." He saw that people live as if they will never die, wasting time on trivialities, and yet fear death as if it is unnatural. To him, the solution was simple. Remember death always. Let it sharpen your awareness. Let it burn away distractions. Let it remind you that what matters is not how long you live, but how well. Marcus Aurelius, writing in his journal while leading Rome through plague and war, reminded himself again and again, "You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think." Imagine the clarity of those words. Imagine waking each morning and knowing it could be your last. Would you waste your day on petty arguments, on mindless scrolling, on shallow pursuits? Or would you live with urgency, with presence, with meaning? This is the power of memento mori. It does not weaken you, it strengthens you. It makes you fearless. Because when you accept death, nothing else can scare you. Think of it this way. What is the worst thing that can happen to you? Most people would answer to die. But if you have already accepted death, if you no longer fear it, then nothing else can truly harm you. Insult, you shrug it off. Loss, you endure it. Failure, you rise again. Even pain cannot defeat you because you know it ends eventually. Death strips fear of its foundation. Once you are no longer afraid of death, you are free. Free to live boldly. Free to act with courage. Free to love without clinging. Free to face each day as a gift, not a guarantee. Epictetus, who had every reason to resent life, born a slave, crippled, beaten, taught his students that death is natural, not to be feared. He said, "I cannot escape death, but at least I can escape the fear of it. This is wisdom, because death is inevitable. No fortress can keep it out. No wealth can buy it off. No prayers can postpone it forever. But fear of death, that is optional. That is a choice. And when you choose to let go of that fear, you become unbreakable." Now ask yourself, how would your life change if you truly remembered that you could die today? Would you still hold grudges? Would you still waste hours on distractions? Would you still postpone your dreams for someday? The truth is brutal but clear. Someday is not promised. Tomorrow is not guaranteed. All you truly have is this moment. And when you see that, when you feel it in your bones, you stop living fragile. You stop clinging. You start living fully, deeply, fearlessly. The Stoics used memento mori as a daily practice. They walked among tombs to remind themselves of mortality. They wrote letters as if each one might be their last. They trained themselves to see death not as an intruder, but as a companion, walking beside them always, reminding them to live well. Seneca said, "He who has learned to die has unlearned how to be a slave." Why? Because the ultimate chain that binds us is fear of death. Break that chain, and no one can control you. Threaten a man who fears death, and he obeys. Threaten a man who has accepted death, and he laughs. Which one do you want to be? Let's test yourself. Imagine someone offered you a deal. You could live forever, but your life would be filled with boredom, pettiness, and wasted days. Or you could live only one more year, but with intensity, clarity, and purpose, knowing you embraced every moment. Which would you choose? Most people cling to length, but the Stoics would choose depth, because it is not the number of years that matters, but the weight of them. Better 1 year lived fully than 100 years wasted. Better 1 day of courage than a lifetime of fear. This perspective transforms even grief. When someone you love dies, pain is natural. The Stoics did not deny it, but they reminded themselves, this was always part of the bargain. From the moment you met them, death was written into the contract. You did not own them. You only borrowed time with them. And when the time was over, the proper response is gratitude, not despair. Gratitude that you had them at all, when so easily you might never have met. This perspective does not erase pain, but it transforms it into strength. You are not broken by loss. You are reminded to love more deeply while you can. So, how do you practice memento mori? Begin small. Each morning, remind yourself, I may not see the evening. Each night, remind yourself, I may not see the morning. Say it not with despair, but with clarity. Feel the weight of those words, then let them guide you. If today could be your last, what will you say? What will you do? What will you love? This practice will not make you morbid. It will make you alive, more alive than those who live as if time is endless. And here is the paradox. When you accept death, you stop fearing it. And when you stop fearing it, you live longer, not in years, but in presence. Because fear steals time. Fear makes you miss the moment, always worrying about what may be lost. Acceptance gives time back. Acceptance lets you live every breath fully, without distraction. This is the gift of memento mori. Death, remembered, gives life. But here comes the deeper challenge. It is one thing to accept death in theory, in meditation. It is another to face it in reality. When illness strikes, when war erupts, when death comes close, will you stand unbroken? This is why the Stoics practiced daily. They made death a familiar companion, so that when it came, it was no stranger. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "It is not death that a man should fear, but he should fear never beginning to live." This is the heart of memento mori. Death is not the enemy. Failing to live is, and so, your fortress must include death itself. Build walls against insult, against failure, against loss, but also build a gate through which death may enter without terror. Invite it in each day as a reminder. As a teacher, let it guide your actions, sharpen your focus, free you from fear. Because when you remember that death is always near, you live differently, you live boldly, you live now. But once you accept death, once you remember it daily, the question arises, what will you do with the life you have? Acceptance without action is empty. To be unbreakable, you must not only remember death, you must live as if each moment matters. You must act with courage, with integrity, with urgency. The Stoics did not stop at meditation. They stepped into the world, into battles, into politics, into hardship, carrying their philosophy into action. And this is your next step. Having accepted death, having freed yourself from fear, you must now ask, how will you live? What will you build? What will you do with the time that remains? This is the discipline of action, the next stage of your journey. It is not enough to think. It is not enough to prepare. To be truly unbreakable, you must move. You must act. You must live in alignment with your values no matter what comes. And this discipline is what we turn to next. You have faced the lie that keeps you weak. You have discovered the secret of internal control. You have begun building your fortress of the mind and learned to remember death so that fear cannot enslave you. But philosophy cannot remain only in thought. Ideas are useless if they are never lived. Words are empty if they are never embodied. The Stoics understood that strength is not built in theory, but in action. And so, to become truly unbreakable, you must master the discipline of action. Look around at the world today. Many speak of wisdom. Many read about resilience, courage, peace. But how many live it? How many face insult without lashing back? How many meet hardship without complaint? How many use their strength to serve others, to act with justice, to live with virtue? The gap between knowing and doing is where fragility hides. It is easy to know what is right. It is hard to do it. But the Stoic is forged in action, not in silence. Marcus Aurelius was emperor of Rome, ruling over millions, constantly surrounded by war, plague, betrayal, and endless responsibility. He could have used philosophy as an escape, retreating into thought while ignoring the burdens of power. But he did the opposite. He wrote in his journal each morning, reminding himself that philosophy is not about words, but about deeds. He called on himself to act with justice, to serve the common good, to rule with restraint. He reminded himself that each day would bring liars, cheaters, and the ungrateful, and that his task was to meet them not with anger but with reason and virtue. His strength was not in his words but in the way he carried them into action, every day, for the empire he led. Seneca, too, though wealthy and powerful, understood that action defined philosophy. He counseled emperors, guided leaders, and reminded himself constantly that fortune could be taken in an instant. His letters to Lucilius are not filled with abstractions, but with commands. Live simply, act with courage, waste no time. Use each day as if it were your last. He reminded himself to turn thought into motion, because without action, wisdom is wasted. And Epictetus, once a slave, crippled and beaten, did not remain bitter. He did not sit idle in resentment. He taught, he acted, he built a school where others could learn freedom of the soul. His philosophy was lived in the way he faced pain, poverty, and insult. He told his students again and again, don't explain your philosophy, embody it. That is the essence of the discipline of action. Do not merely speak of Stoicism, live it. But how do you live Stoicism in action? You begin with the choices in front of you today. Every day presents you with moments where you can choose virtue or weakness. When insulted, you can lash back in anger, or you can remain calm. When tempted by greed, you can grab selfishly, or you can choose justice. When tired, you can collapse into apathy, or you can choose discipline. Each choice is small, but each choice is a brick in your character. Over time, those bricks build the person you are. You become fragile by small, weak choices repeated daily. You become unbreakable by small, strong choices repeated daily. And here lies the challenge. You cannot postpone action. You cannot say, tomorrow I will live with courage. Tomorrow I will speak the truth. Tomorrow I will act with discipline. Tomorrow is not yours. Only this moment is, Seneca said. While we wait for life, life passes. Every delay is surrender. Every hesitation is fragility. The unbreakable man or woman is forged now, in the fire of this very moment, by the actions you take today. Imagine two paths. On one, you read about Stoicism, admire its strength, and promise yourself that one day you will live it. On the other, you decide, here and now, to embody it, to rise tomorrow and face insult with calm, to meet hardship without complaint, to act with justice in all dealings, to waste no time in empty pursuits. Which path leads to unbreakable strength? Which path leads to fragility disguised as wisdom? The answer is clear. The discipline of action is not about perfection. You will fail, you will stumble, you will sometimes choose weakness, but the Stoic does not collapse in guilt. The Stoic rises again, recommits, continues the practice. Each failure is fuel. Each mistake is training. The only true failure is inaction. The only true weakness is postponement. Now let us be precise. The Stoics defined action as living in alignment with virtue, and they named 4 cardinal virtues: wisdom, justice, courage, and discipline. Every action you take should be measured against these. Wisdom. Is this action aligned with truth or with ignorance? Justice. Does this action serve the common good or only selfish desire? Courage. Does this action face fear or flee from it? Discipline. Does this action reflect self-control or indulgence? Ask yourself these questions daily, in every small and large act. In time, your life becomes a living expression of philosophy. And what happens when you live this way? Fragility falls away. Because fragility comes from contradiction. When you know the right thing but fail to do it, you weaken your soul. Strength comes from alignment. When your actions match your values, you become whole. And a whole person cannot be broken. But here is the trap. The world will try to lure you away from action. It will tempt you with distractions, with comforts, with endless delays. It will tell you, relax, postpone, wait for the right time. The Stoic laughs at this trap, because the right time is always now. You do not become strong in the future. You become strong in the present by acting now. So let me ask you, where in your life have you postponed action? Where have you told yourself, someday I will be disciplined, someday I will be brave, someday I will live by my values. Someday is the language of the fragile. Now is the language of the unbreakable. Choose now, act now, live now. And remember, action is not only about great deeds, it is about consistency. A soldier does not win a war with one heroic charge, but with discipline in every drill, every march, every battle. You do not become unbreakable with one grand gesture, but with steady, daily action. Do not underestimate the power of small acts lived with virtue. Each one adds strength to your fortress. Each one sharpens your soul. But here lies the greatest test of action. Not just to act when it is easy, but to act when it is hard. When fear is strong, act with courage. When temptation is loud, act with discipline. When injustice surrounds you, act with justice. When confusion reigns, act with wisdom. It is in these moments, when the cost is high, when the pressure is great, that your philosophy proves itself. Anyone can be virtuous when it costs nothing. The Stoic is virtuous when it costs everything. Think of the men and women who inspire history. They are remembered not for what they thought, but for what they did. Their actions in the face of fear, in the midst of adversity, defined them. And so it will be with you. Not what you believed, but how you lived. Not what you intended, but what you acted upon. Action is the measure of strength. Action is the proof of philosophy. But even here, there is a deeper layer. For action is not just about what you do, but about how you desire. Because action is born from desire. If your desires are disordered, your actions will be too. If you crave wealth, fame, pleasure, you will act in ways that betray your strength. If you desire only virtue, your actions will align with wisdom, justice, courage, and discipline. This is why the Stoics taught not only the discipline of action, but also the discipline of desire, the art of wanting only what is truly good. And this is the path you must now walk. You have seen that philosophy without action is weakness, and that strength is forged in deeds, not words. But every action has a root. Every decision is born from a seed within you, and that seed is desire. What you want determines how you act. What you crave determines how you live. And here lies a hidden truth. Most people are not broken by events, but by their desires. They want what they cannot control. They crave what is fragile. They build their lives on sand, and when the storm comes, it washes everything away. If you wish to be unbreakable, you must master not only your actions, but also your desires. This is the discipline of desire. Think of the people you see chasing endlessly. Money, status, possessions, admiration. They exhaust themselves, burning years of life in pursuit of things they can never hold securely. They climb ladders only to discover the ladders lean against crumbling walls. And when they lose what they chased, when fortune turns and when fame fades, when wealth is stolen, they collapse. Why? Because their desire was rooted in externals. They tied their happiness to things beyond their control, and in doing so, they guaranteed fragility. The Stoics saw this trap with piercing clarity. Epictetus taught his students, freedom is not achieved by satisfying desires, but by eliminating them. What did he mean? Not that you must kill every want, but that you must refine them. You must learn to desire only what lies within your power, your own judgments, your own choices, your own virtue. Because these alone cannot be taken from you. These alone are secure. If you desire wealth, you may lose it. If you desire fame, it may vanish. If you desire health, it may decay. But if you desire virtue, no one can steal it. If you desire wisdom, justice, courage, discipline, these belong to you alone. Seneca wrote, "He is most powerful who has power over himself." Desire is where this power begins. For what is desire but a master you choose to obey? If you crave pleasure, pleasure rules you. If you crave approval, other people rule you. If you crave possessions, fortune rules you. But if you crave only virtue, you rule yourself. And self-rule is unbreakable. Pause for a moment and ask yourself, what do you truly want? Beneath the surface goals, beneath the daily distractions, what desire drives you? Is it safety? Is it comfort? Is it recognition? These may seem harmless, but they enslave you. Because the world decides whether you get them. You cannot guarantee comfort. You cannot force recognition. You cannot control safety. If you build your peace on these, your peace is fragile. But if you shift your desire, if you want only what is yours to command, then no one can touch you. You become untouchable not because the world is kind, but because your desire is invulnerable. Imagine two men. One desires wealth, the other desires wisdom. Both face hardship. Fortune takes the first man's riches, and he collapses, ruined, angry, despairing. But fortune cannot touch the second man's wisdom, and so he remains calm, steady, at peace. Same hardship, different desire, different outcome. Which man is fragile? Which man is unbreakable? The discipline of desire is not about living with nothing. It is about wanting differently. The Stoics still ate, still worked, still loved, still lived. But they trained themselves to hold these things lightly, to enjoy them without clinging. They desired to live in accordance with nature, to align their will with reason, to embrace virtue above all. Everything else was secondary, a gift to be enjoyed but not required. And this is why they could face loss without collapse. They had already trained their hearts to want only what cannot be taken. But here lies the challenge. Your desires are not easily mastered. From childhood, you have been taught to crave approval, possessions, success. The world shouts at you daily, buy this, chase that, be admired, be envied. To turn away from these voices feels unnatural, even painful. But strength is built in this turning. Each time you reject a false desire, you reclaim power. Each time you choose virtue over vanity, you build another wall in your fortress. How do you begin? Practice noticing your desires. Throughout the day, ask, why do I want this? If I get it, will it make me free or more enslaved? If I lose it, will I be broken or untouched? These questions expose the weakness of most desires. You want praise, why? To feel worthy. But your worth does not come from another's tongue. You want wealth, why? To feel secure. But true security is only in your character. You want pleasure, why? To escape discomfort. But you are strong enough to endure discomfort. Every desire examined reveals either weakness or strength. Choose only the desires that strengthen. The Stoics offered a radical shift. Instead of desiring externals, desire only to live in harmony with reason and virtue. Epictetus told his students, don't demand that things happen as you wish, but wish them to happen as they do, and you will go on well. This is the ultimate mastery of desire, not to bend the world to your cravings, but to bend your cravings to the world. To desire reality itself, moment by moment, exactly as it is. Imagine the freedom of this. No disappointment, no despair. Because whatever happens, it aligns with your will. You desire what is, and so you are always satisfied. Is this easy? No. Your mind will rebel. It will crave comfort, crave recognition, crave control over what it cannot command. But every time you let go, every time you release false desire, you gain strength. The chains loosen. The fortress grows. You become freer, calmer, stronger. Now think of death again. Most fear it because they desire life without end. But life without end is not in your control. It never was. To crave it is to invite despair. But if you desire only to live with virtue while you are alive, then death has no sting. It cannot rob you of your purpose. It cannot take from you what you never demanded in the first place. This is why the Stoic who masters desire becomes fearless, even in the face of death. And here lies the hidden paradox. When you let go of false desires, you do not become empty. You become full. When you stop craving wealth, you discover contentment in simplicity. When you stop chasing approval, you discover peace and self-respect. When you stop demanding life on your terms, you discover harmony with the universe. Freedom does not come from having everything you want. It comes from wanting less and wanting only what is truly yours. But what about fear? Even if you master desire, fear still lingers. You may not crave wealth, but you still fear poverty. You may not crave health, but you still fear sickness. You may not crave eternal life, but you still fear death. Desire and aversion are two sides of the same coin, and if you wish to be unbreakable, you must master both. The discipline of desire frees you from craving. The discipline of aversion frees you from fear. And this is where we must go next. Because until you master not only what you want, but also what you reject, fragility remains. The next enemy hides in what you fear most, and facing it will decide whether your fortress stands or falls. Are you ready to confront the discipline of aversion? You have begun to master desire. You are learning not to crave what lies beyond your control, but to root your wants in virtue, wisdom, and strength. This is freedom. But even if you stop chasing false desires, there is another enemy waiting in the shadows. It is not what you run toward, but what you run from. Not what you crave, but what you fear. This is aversion, and until you master it, you cannot be unbreakable. Look at the world around you. People are ruled by fear. Fear of poverty, fear of sickness, fear of insult, fear of rejection, fear of death. These fears make them fragile. They avoid challenges, avoid truth, avoid growth, all because they fear discomfort. Fear chains them more tightly than desire ever did. Because desire says, I cannot be happy without this. But fear says, I cannot survive if that happens. Fear is the deeper prison. And the Stoics knew that freedom requires breaking both chains. Epictetus taught his students, men are disturbed not by things, but by the views which they take of them. Death, for instance, is not terrible, else it would have appeared so to Socrates. But the terror consists in our notion of death, that it is terrible. Here lies the key. Nothing external is terrifying by itself. Death, pain, poverty, they are just facts of life. What makes them terrifying is our judgment. Change the judgment, and the fear dissolves. Change what you avert, and you change your destiny. The Stoics trained themselves to shift aversion away from externals and onto vice. They taught, do not fear death, fear cowardice, do not fear poverty, fear dishonor, do not fear pain, fear injustice, because death will come regardless. Poverty may strike regardless. Pain is unavoidable. But cowardice, dishonor, and injustice, those are choices. Those are within your control, and they are the only true evils. Imagine living this way. Imagine if you no longer feared loss, sickness, rejection, but only feared failing in virtue. How unbreakable would you be? Think of Marcus Aurelius, writing in his journal while plague ravaged Rome. He could have feared death daily, but he refused. Instead, he reminded himself that death is natural, that fear is useless, and that his only task was to live with justice and reason for as long as he had breath. Or Seneca, exiled and facing disgrace, reminding himself that exile cannot harm a man who carries his true home within him. Or Epictetus, crippled by cruelty, teaching that pain is bearable if the soul refuses to see it as evil. These men faced what most fear, and they stood unbroken, because their aversion was not misplaced. Now consider your own life. What do you avoid out of fear? Do you avoid speaking the truth because you fear rejection? Do you avoid bold action because you fear failure? Do you avoid discomfort because you fear pain? Each avoidance weakens you. Each fear makes your fortress crack. And each time you give in to fear, you train yourself to be more fragile. Fear grows when you feed it. Courage grows when you starve it. Which are you feeding? The Stoics advised daily confrontation of fear. Just as they practiced discomfort to master desire, they practiced exposure to master aversion. Afraid of poverty? Live simply for a time and discover you can endure it. Afraid of pain? Embrace cold, hunger, or labor and learn your strength. Afraid of death? Meditate on it until it loses its sting. Each practice shrinks fear. Each practice builds walls. Until one day you realize the things that once terrified you no longer hold power. But there is a deeper level. Fear is not only about events, but about opinions. Most people live enslaved by the fear of what others think. They avoid judgment, avoid disapproval, avoid standing out. This fear robs them of freedom. Seneca said, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." And nowhere is this truer than in the fear of other people's opinions. You imagine their judgment, and it terrifies you. But in truth, their thoughts cannot touch you. They vanish like smoke. To live unbreakable, you must stop averting shame from others and only avert shame from yourself. Do not fear being judged. Fear being unjust. Do not fear being mocked. Fear being cowardly. Only then are you free. And what of death? Death is the greatest aversion of all. Most people live their entire lives running from it, refusing to think of it. hoping to escape it. But the Stoics turned and faced it. They made death a companion, not an enemy. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily, "You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think." To remember death is not to live in fear, but to live without it. Because once you stop averting death, nothing can break you. Let us test this truth. Imagine the worst thing you fear happening: poverty, illness, humiliation, loss, even death. Now imagine yourself facing it calmly, saying, "This too is natural. This too is bearable. This too cannot touch my virtue." Feel the shift. Feel the chains loosen. This is what it means to master aversion. You do not deny reality. You embrace it, and in embracing, you rob it of its power. But here lies the paradox. When you stop fearing externals, you live more fully. Fear shrinks life. It makes you avoid risk, avoid love, avoid truth. Without fear, life expands. You dare to speak. You dare to act. You dare to live boldly. And in living boldly, you discover joy. The Stoics did not live grim lives of endless denial. They lived intensely because they were free. Fearless people are the most alive people. So now, ask yourself, what would your life look like if you stopped fearing loss? If you stopped fearing failure? If you stopped fearing death itself? You would be unshakable. You would be untouchable. You would be free. This is the gift of the discipline of aversion. It turns the things that terrify others into shadows, powerless against your soul. But to master both desire and aversion, you must have a map, a clear boundary that shows what belongs to you and what does not. Because only with this map can you know where to direct your wants and your fears. This map is the heart of Stoicism. It is the circle of control, the ultimate line between power and powerlessness, between strength and fragility. And this map is what we must explore next. Because once you see it clearly, you will never be enslaved again. You have faced desire and reshaped it. You have turned your aversions away from externals and toward vice alone. Already, you are stronger than most. But there is still a question burning beneath it all. The foundation upon which every Stoic builds his fortress. What belongs to you and what does not? This question is the heart of Stoicism. It is the dividing line between freedom and slavery, between peace and torment, between the unbreakable and the fragile. And the answer is found in the circle of control. Epictetus taught his students to begin here always. Some things are in our control, others are not. Within our control are opinion, pursuit, desire, aversion, our own thoughts, our own choices, our own character. Beyond our control are body, property, reputation, office, all things that depend on others or on fortune. Confuse these, and you are doomed. Keep them clear, and you are free. Most people confuse them. They pour their energy into what they cannot command, and they neglect what they alone possess. They spend years trying to control other people's opinions, trying to guarantee wealth, trying to preserve health, trying to hold back death. And when these slip through their fingers, as they always do, they collapse, because their peace was built on sand. But the Stoic knows better. The Stoic draws a circle around what is truly his and lives there. Inside the circle, your judgment, your choices, your actions. Outside the circle, everything else. And here is the secret. Everything outside the circle is already lost. You cannot own it. You cannot guarantee it. So do not chain your happiness to it. Want only what is inside the circle, and you are free. Fear only failing inside the circle, and you are unbreakable. Think of reputation. People spend lifetimes chasing approval, terrified of judgment. But reputation is outside the circle. It belongs to others, not to you. You cannot control what others think, only what you do. If you act with virtue, let others say what they will. Their words are smoke. Only your own soul belongs to you. Think of health. People fear sickness, obsess over the body, panic at every sign of aging. But health is outside the circle. You may exercise, eat well, care for yourself. But in the end, sickness and death come to all. If you tie your peace to health, you guarantee despair. But if you tie your peace to virtue, then even illness cannot touch you, for your soul remains your own. Think of wealth. Fortune gives and fortune takes. No man commands the market, no woman commands fate. Riches vanish in a moment. If your happiness depends on them, you are fragile. But if your happiness depends only on the choices within your circle, wisdom, justice, courage, discipline, then you remain steady, whether rich or poor. This is the power of the circle of control. It shrinks the battlefield. Instead of fighting wars you cannot win, you fight only where you are invincible. Instead of exhausting yourself chasing what belongs to fortune, you master what belongs to you. And in this mastery, you discover freedom. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." These were not empty words. He faced betrayals, wars, plagues, endless duties. If anyone had cause to collapse under the weight of externals, it was him. But he clung to the circle of control. Each day, he reminded himself, "The world may collapse, but my judgment is mine. My virtue is mine. My actions are mine." And so he stood unbroken. Seneca, surrounded by wealth and politics, knew the same truth. He wrote to Lucilius, "What fortune has made yours is not really yours." He saw that possessions, power, reputation, they all belong to fortune, not to you. To live as if they were yours is to live in delusion. To live as if only your soul is yours is to live in truth. And Epictetus, the slave-turned-teacher, embodied this truth most clearly. He had no wealth, no power, no freedom in the eyes of the world. Yet he was freer than his masters, because his masters could chain his body, but not his will. They could strike his flesh, but not his judgment. He lived fully within his circle of control, and so he was untouchable. Now, consider your own life. How much suffering have you created by trying to control what is not yours? How much time have you wasted chasing approval, clinging to wealth, fearing death? All of this is energy thrown into the void. Imagine if you redirected that energy inward, into mastering your thoughts, your actions, your virtue. Imagine how strong you would be if all your effort was spent on what cannot be taken from you. This is the path of the unbreakable. But here lies the paradox. Living inside the circle does not make you passive, it makes you powerful. People think that if they stop trying to control externals, they will do nothing. But the opposite is true. When you stop wasting energy on what you cannot control, you free it for what you can. You stop panicking about reputation and focus on living justly. You stop fearing death and focus on living fully. You stop clinging to possessions and focus on using them wisely while you have them. The circle of control does not shrink life, it expands it. Picture yourself walking through chaos. Around you, storms rage, people shout, fortunes collapse, bodies fail. Everyone else is tossed like ships without anchor, breaking under the waves. But you stand calm. Why? Because you know the storm cannot touch what is truly yours. The storm can break your body, your wealth, your reputation, but not your soul. And your soul is all you ever owned. This is unbreakable strength. But there is a deeper challenge. It is easy to understand the circle of control in theory. It is hard to live it when disaster strikes, when insult cuts, when loss stings, when sickness drains. You will be tempted to step outside the circle, to demand what is not yours. This is why the Stoics trained daily. They reminded themselves again and again, is this in my control or not? If yes, act with virtue. If no, accept with courage. This practice is your shield. Without it, you are fragile. With it, you are free. Now ask yourself, what would your life look like if you truly lived only inside the circle of control? How many fears would vanish? How many chains would fall away? How much peace would you gain? The truth is, almost all suffering is self-inflicted, born from trying to command what you cannot. Remove that illusion, and suffering dissolves. And yet, there is still one step left, because knowing the circle of control is not enough. You must embody it so completely that it transforms you, so that in every moment, under every pressure, you remain unshaken. This is the final transformation. The moment you stop practicing Stoicism as a tool and start living it as your nature. The moment you cease to be fragile and become unbreakable. That transformation is our final step, and it will demand everything from you. Are you ready to take it? You have walked the path of desire, reshaped your aversions, and drawn the circle of control around your soul. You have practiced action, faced death, and confronted the lies your mind tells you. Step by step, you have stripped away fragility. But the journey is not finished until all of this becomes more than practice. Until Stoicism is not just something you study, but something you breathe. Until you are not a student trying to become unbreakable, but a being who is unbreakable. This is the final transformation. Most people approach philosophy as a tool, something they reach for in times of trouble, something they consult when storms rise. And in the beginning, this is enough. But tools can be misplaced, books can be forgotten, advice can be ignored. What cannot be taken from you is what has become your nature. And until Stoicism is written into your very being, you will remain vulnerable. The final transformation is about embodiment, turning philosophy into flesh and blood. What does this look like? It looks like a life lived so deeply in alignment with wisdom, justice, courage, and discipline that you no longer ask, "What should I do?" You simply do it. Virtue is no longer a question, but a reflex. Peace is no longer a pursuit, but a state. Strength is no longer an effort, but a presence. You become a living fortress, not because you try to be one, but because you cannot be otherwise. Marcus Aurelius wrote in his journal not to learn new truths, but to remind himself of what he already knew. He had trained his mind so thoroughly that wisdom was always within reach. Seneca did not write his letters to invent philosophy, but to sharpen what he already lived. Epictetus did not lecture on abstract principles, but on habits to be practiced daily. For all of them, Stoicism was not theory. It was breath, heartbeat, marrow. That is why they stood unbroken. The final transformation requires relentless practice until practice disappears. At first, you must remind yourself, "This is within my control, this is not." In time, it becomes instinct. At first, you must force yourself to act with courage. In time, fear no longer holds sway. At first, you must fight to let go of desire. In time, you no longer crave what is fragile. Philosophy begins as effort, but it ends as essence. That ending is where unbreakable strength is born. But beware, many stop short of this. They admire Stoicism, they speak of it, they even practice it in pieces, but they never let it consume them fully. They cling to certain fears, certain desires, certain illusions. And so, when the great test comes, they collapse. Do not stop halfway. Do not settle for fragments. If you wish to be unbreakable, you must surrender fully. You must let Stoicism rewrite you, cell by cell, thought by thought, until no weakness remains. How do you reach this? Through constant rehearsal. Each day is training. Each insult, each setback, each temptation, each loss is your arena. Do not resent them. Use them. The world will hand you endless opportunities to practice strength. Do not waste them in complaint. Treat each one as a gift. Poverty is a chance to practice simplicity. Sickness is a chance to practice endurance. Insult is a chance to practice calm. Death is a chance to practice acceptance. Every blow the world delivers is a hammer striking the steel of your soul. Do not curse the hammer. Welcome it. Without it, you remain untested, unshaped. With it, you are forged. And this is the paradox. The unbreakable person is not the one who avoids suffering, but the one who embraces it. Not the one who demands comfort, but the one who thrives without it. Not the one who fears death, but the one who walks beside it without trembling. when you can look at every trial and say, "This too strengthens me," then nothing can break you, because every attack becomes fuel, every wound becomes armor, every loss becomes freedom. Now ask yourself, what is left to fear once you live this way? Fortune cannot break you, because you no longer tie your peace to her gifts. People cannot break you, because you no longer live for their approval. Pain cannot break you, because you have learned to endure. Death cannot break you, because you have already accepted it. The world throws its worst and you stand, not in defiance but in serenity, not with clenched fists, but with steady heart. This is the unbreakable soul. But here lies the greatest test of all. Can you remain unbreakable not only in hardship, but in abundance? Many fall not in storms, but in sunshine. They endure poverty but collapse in wealth. They endure insult but collapse in praise. They endure labor but collapse in leisure. The final transformation demands mastery in both directions. To hold yourself steady when fortune strikes as much as when she abandons. To enjoy gifts without clinging. To accept losses without despair. To remain the same, unchanged, whether the world lifts you up or tears you down. That is the mark of the unbreakable. And this steadiness does not mean coldness. The Stoic is not a stone. He feels joy, love, gratitude, connection, but he does not depend on them. He loves without chains. He enjoys without clinging. He feels deeply, but he does not shatter when those feelings end. He walks through life with open hands, ready to hold what comes, ready to release what goes. And in this openness, he finds a peace that nothing can corrupt. Imagine yourself years from now. Trials have come, losses have struck, joys have bloomed and faded, but through it all you remain steady. Not because life was kind, but because your soul was strong. Friends and strangers look at you and wonder, how did you endure? How did you remain calm when others collapsed? How did you find peace in the midst of chaos? The answer will not be found in words, but in who you have become. You will not need to explain Stoicism. You will embody it. You will not need to defend your strength. You will be it. And here, at the end, lies the greatest secret. Becoming unbreakable was never about changing the world. It was never about mastering others, or bending fate, or defeating death. It was about mastering yourself, about drawing your circle, commanding your desires, reshaping your aversions, embodying your actions, about becoming so aligned with virtue that nothing could knock you off course. The world remains chaotic. Fortune remains fickle. Death remains certain. But you remain unbroken. This is the gift of Stoicism. Not immortality, but resilience. Not control over fate, but control over yourself. Not escape from hardship, but strength within it. You will still feel pain, still face loss, still meet death. But you will face them as one who cannot be defeated. And when others crumble, you will stand, not because you are harder than stone, but because you are softer than water, flowing around every obstacle, yielding without breaking, bending without shattering. And so, the final question, will you let this remain as words, or will you live it? Will you admire strength from afar, or will you embody it? Will you remain fragile, or will you step into the discipline that makes you unbreakable? The choice is yours, and in that choice lies your freedom. The next storm is coming. The next loss is already on its way. The next insult, the next fear, the next test waits for you. You cannot stop them, but you can decide how you will meet them. And if you have walked this path fully, if you have embraced each discipline, then you will meet them with calm, with courage, with strength. You will stand when others fall. You will endure when others collapse. You will remain when others are swept away. You will be unbreakable.